Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Vitor Zimmerer. I'm the admissions tutor and a teaching fellow working for the MSI and BSc Psychology and Language Sciences program. I welcome you to UCL in this virtual way, and I congratulate you to your offer. I know that you're now facing this difficult decision. You want to spend the next years of your life in a meaningful way. So in a way that helps you in your career, that satisfies your interests and your curiosity, but you also want to be in a place that makes you feel welcome and comfortable. And today I'm here to explain the program to you so that you can make an informed choice, so that you know whether this is something for you. And with that, let's talk about psychology and language sciences. It's a very special program because not only are we a psychology program, we're interested in human behavior, we cover all aspects of psychology, but we also have this special focus and interest on language and on human communication. So we ask questions that in other programs may not be quite at the center of attention. Let me give you some of the big questions, such as why us? Why do we as humans learn this very complex system for communication and not other primates, for example? How do we acquire language, be it the native language from our environment or a second language, also from the environment, but also in the classroom? And is there a difference between those two modalities? How do we use language in a neuroscience sense? So how does the brain do it? How do we process language? But also, how do we use language in a social environment in different situations? And finally, we are interested in what can happen to language in clinical populations, such as people who had a stroke or experienced dementia or have a developmental disorder, such as autism. And all of these questions really feed into a wide range of applications, education or clinical applications, computer science, if you think about AI, or automated analysis of language, or other areas such as media or politics. There are a wide range of fields which include knowledge and skills from psychology and language science. Our program is situated in Chandler House in Bloomsbury, London. And it's a very special place because a lot of what's happening in it is dedicated to language sciences. We have 3 research departments: linguistics, language and cognition, and speech, hearing, and phonetics science, all in one building. We have our own specialist library, the Language and Speech Science Library. So not only is there a space in the building for you to find some quiet, to find a quiet environment for your studies, but we also have the resources which are relevant to the field in the building, the literature, and also the tests that clinicians use and educators use and researchers use to assess an individual's cognition and language and communication skills. There's also the communication clinic in the building. At the communication clinic, we work mostly with people who had a stroke and experienced something called aphasia, which is a language impairment. And we do research in that clinic and deliver interventions. In addition, we have a range of labs: a speech science lab, we have an EEG lab, a TMS lab, so a transcranial magnetic stimulation, and a baby lab for work on infants and small children. And all together creates this vibrant community, which is what I find really inspiring, because even though I specialize as a researcher on some specific questions, just being there, talking to people, going to events, makes me learn a lot about the wider field. So yeah, it's a good place to be if you're interested in language science. When it comes to teaching, we understand that we need different modalities. So people have different skill sets, but also different subjects require different ways of teaching. So not only do we have lectures in the entire group, let's say a U group, and our U groups are relatively small, for about 45, 50 students each year. But we also break groups up into smaller groups of, let's say, up to 10 for tutorials or labs, which which we use to focus on more specific questions and methods relevant to the field in a more hands-on way. I have to say the labs are not with up to 10 students, so usually labs, there are 2 labs per year group, so groups of around 25. There's also the observational placement, which takes place in year 2, and I'm going to talk more about later. And independent study, so your private engagement with the literature, with the data. With regards to assessments, there too we understand that we need different modalities. You can't test everything in a multiple choice questionnaire, and it wouldn't make any sense. So we have assessments that involve essays and data analysis, lab reports, oral presentations. And the one thing I want to tell you is that I don't want you to worry about those different ways of assessment, because it's not just our job to teach you about the subject and to assess you, but also to prepare you for these different activities. So there are practice assessments, there are practice tutorials, which really help you prepare for the real thing. And all of those skills are relevant beyond your time as a student. Being able to put an argument together in a cohesive way, whether written or spoken, is very important. Working with complex data can be very important. So these are pretty much general professional skills. Student support is quite an important issue, because even though most of you will not face any major difficulties, all of you will require some academic support, and some, unfortunately, will face a larger crisis, tragedy in the family, or financial difficulties, or other things. And that's not specific to students, it happens in every population. But we take great care of our students, and we have a lot of different resources and networks in place to help you with smaller and larger issues. With regards to academic support, there are academic tutors which help you learn those key academic and research skills. Within each module, there can be tutors that help with specific tasks. And then I also want to highlight our transition program, which has groups of first-year students communicate or meet students of years 2 and 3, which helps them prepare for what lies ahead. This is quite useful. Pastoral support is support that goes a little bit beyond that. So this is really support that is there for your life as a student. Each one of you has a personal tutor, and that person, if everything goes well, you meet two or three times per year just to kind of catch up. And obviously, you see in the building, or the person may be delivering one of your modules. But importantly, it's someone who you can always contact if there's any problem. And we are very responsive. Usually you get from us within the day or the next day or so. And some problems we can solve, we can give you the right advice, but if not, we can point you in the right direction to someone who can help you. Right. The good thing, a real strength of our program is the size of it. As I said, we are quite small, up to 50 students in a year group. And this means that we get to know our students. It feels more like a family. We know all of our students' names. Okay, we know you, we recognize you, and this really helps make forge good relationships between staff and students. Let's talk about the structure of our program. If you're a BSc student, you have 3 years. For an MSI, there are 4. And the idea here is that in year 1, everything that you do is compulsory. You have no choice. And we do that because we need to make sure that you learn all the basics and even understand what is there to specialize in. Okay. And as we move to years 2 and 3, you get more and more options, which you can pick according to your interests, professional and just general research interests. If we look at year 1 modules, you get a lot of introductions. Actually, each of these modules is an introduction, whether that word is featured in the title or not. And we cover the basics, right? Language, speech science, neuropsychology, different aspects of psychology. Okay? I want to highlight 2 modules in particular, namely Evidence and Inquiry in Psychology and Introduction to Statistical Methods. And I'm highlighting these because I want to tell you that it's not just important to learn about the subject, but also to learn about how we learn things, to learn about how to carry out research. And what you learn in these modules is not just relevant for psychology and language sciences, but for other sciences as well. And so these are very broad and useful skills to have. You get to learn how to appreciate and evaluate studies and how to work with complex data samples, which may be of use for you in your professional career, but also just makes you an informed citizen. If you open a newspaper and you read about a study, knowing about research methods really helps you understand the relevance of that study. We're living during the time of a global pandemic. There's a lot of talk about the spread of a virus and the efficacy of drugs. And if you know research methods, you have a better idea of what's going on. Okay, just as an example. Don't want to include a bit of a downer topic, but here we are. One thing I want to highlight is the brain lab. And it's a very unique experience because you actually get to go to an anatomy lab and look and touch look at and touch real brains. Right? Look at their structure, hold brains in your own hand, and have someone guide you through the anatomy. And this really helps students understand and appreciate brain structure. But I also highlight it because it links to something that's important for us, namely experiential learning. So you don't just hear about brains or look at a 3D module or model or look at some interesting MRI scans. You actually get first-hand experience as well. And this does not just apply to neuropsychology, but to other areas as well. And many modules have little experiments, feature little experiments or demonstrations and other things that help you get the first-hand experience, which is crucial for good learning. So experiential learning. I want to give you an idea of how your timetable may look like. Obviously, it changes from year to year. But what I really want to highlight is that we try to keep blocks of time available for independent study. So here, the whole Monday is free. There's very little on the Thursday. And it's useful to have these blocks of free time. We know that. The Wednesday afternoon is reserved for extracurricular activities, societies, etc. But yeah, we have these blocks of free time. I shouldn't say free. because obviously we do expect you to be involved in independent study. You should treat your study as a full-time job, even though your timetable says that there's a day off or so. You should be busy with things that are related to the course. But you do have that flexibility, and you have these blocks of time for you to concentrate on specific things that interest you. And it's similar with the spring term timetable of this year. So our students this spring had the entire Friday off, for example. Let's look at year 2. Modules become a bit more specialized, as you see, but we also continue teaching research methods. Okay? As I said, it's very important to us. You get your first options, so you can pick one of those 3 modules. Introduction to Generative Grammar, if you are interested in linguistics. Language and communication, which is a bit more applied. It's about language in different scenarios and in different parts of our society, for example, politics. And then we have a module called the human voice, which is about processing of voice, what kind of information we got out of it, how voice relates to individual identity, for example. And I recommend you to go to our webpage and look at these modules because we have good explanations and descriptions of each. During the second, I forgot, you also have the choice of an elective module. And this is something that's not offered by Psychology and Language Sciences, but just by UCL. So the possibility space is huge. And some people pick something that's closer to their program, such as Psychology and Crime or British Sign Language. But if you want to, you can also do something that's very, very different, such as study Nordic storytelling. Okay, and we want you to do that. We want you to follow your interests here. So during the second year, the early years placement, observational placement takes place. Right? It's part of the module development of communication and cognition. And students get to are placed in a early years setting one morning each week in the spring term. It can be a nursery or early school setting, a reception, which is for 4-year-olds, or year 1 for 5, 6-year-olds. And this, again, is important for experiential learning, not just learning about development in a lecture theater, but really getting to see children, see their development, see them being tested, and link that to what you're learning at that time. And students really value that. It's a lot of fun for them. These placements require a police check. In the UK, that's the DBS check. In other countries, it's something else, but we help facilitate that. There are also the academic tutorials, and these are not specific to a subject, like a module, but they're there to help you acquire key academic and study skills. Reading, understanding research articles, evaluating them, improve your academic writing, your presentation skills, but also talk about larger topics such as research ethics or the representation of science in the media. And we try to make these tutorials fit neatly into the modules that are currently running. So by the time you write your first lab report, you will have ahead tutorials on academic writing, for example. Year 3 has something that's really exciting, of course, which is your dissertation project, your research project. And UCL, we make these actual research projects. So we're not just running them so that we can assess you, but we want you to generate useful new knowledge. This is actual research, which you carry out in a collaboration with your supervisor, who is a researcher interested in the topic that you're going to dive into. There's a huge range of different topics. So here are a few titles from third-year dissertations. Obviously, these change every year, and if you want to know more about the direction in which your research project might be going, you want to look at our staff and academic teaching staff and find out what they are doing, what they are interested in. But it's a wide range. In year 3, as I said, every module you pick are because you chose it. Right? And we want to make sure that we can satisfy different interests. So if you're interested in neuroscience, here are a few modules that may be relevant to you, right? Or educational psychology. We have a range of modules that are specific to that. Speech and language therapy, the same, and behavioral psychology, behavioral insights as well. And in year 3, the modules become even closer to the research. So you get very close to what your lecturer may be doing in their research project, because by now you've reached a level at which you can quite confidently discuss current topics and novel ideas. As an MSci student, you have a 4th year, and during that year, you can specialize. You can decide to pursue a research pathway or an applied pathway, depending on your interests and what you want to do later. And as a researcher, you're embedded within a research lab. Okay, so you have that placement. And with the applied pathway, that placement happens within a clinical or educational setting. And the modules are offered accordingly. So more research skills if you choose the research pathway, and behavioral research in applied settings if you choose the applied pathway. One word about statistics, because it features right from year 1. You don't have to be a great mathematical mind to be good at it or enjoy it. You should just not be afraid to engage with numbers and formulas. Actually, if you think you can't handle numbers, this is probably not the right degree for you. But at the same time, we don't ask you to be a mathematician. Okay. Now let's talk about careers. As I hope you understand now, this is a very wide research area subject. And as such, there are many ways for you to go after your degree. Jobs that are related to educational psychology, to clinical psychology, occupational psychology, all of these are open to you. Okay. Some choose to do research, to follow their BSc with a master's or even a PhD and become researchers. And of course, all these fields are open to you within psychology and language sciences. You should be interested in language sciences as a PALS, as a psychology and language science student, but some students just decide that they've had enough and they want to do something different in psychology. And you can do that. You can do a master's in clinical psychology or other aspects of psychology with that degree. Okay. The important thing for you to know also is that we help you with starting your career. We have CV workshops, we have interview training, there are opportunities to do internships. So you're not just kind of floating in space after your degree. You should use what we offer to get an idea of what you can do next and how to do it. The final slide about the BPS accreditation, so a British Psychological Society. If you want to be a professional psychologist in the UK, this is a must, so it's a very important step. So it's important that we have this accreditation. If your final degree is a 2.2 or higher, you are a chartered psychologist. Okay? And that's, as I said, an important milestone. The BPS accreditation is recognized in many countries, but you need to find out if you want to work in a different country whether this is the case. So I know that, for example, in the US, it is recognized, but there's some additional exam required. But it's important that in a way defines our program, because we need to meet the criteria set up by the British Psychological Society. And that's it from me. So now I want to hear from you, so your questions. So let's get to the chat. I thank you for listening. You can also email me if later today you think of a question that you didn't get to ask. And you can also follow us on Twitter to stay up to date with what's happening around our program. Thank you very much, and now let's chat.